I'm so excited to welcome everyone here today for the next installment in our Peptides for Peri to Post-Menopause and More series on optimizing your stack. I'm so excited to be joined here today. These two incredible panelists, experts in all the things. So for those that don't know me, I'm Lauren Weiniger. I am the founder and CEO of the Metapause. I started this company because I realized as a woman who'd been building in health tech for like a decade that I knew almost nothing about my own body. So went on a mission journey to figure it out. We're building an incredible tech platform to help every woman know exactly what to do, what to take, what to avoid for her unique biology. And I've been finding and sifting through and the very few and far between true experts in women's hormonal health, longevity, and beyond. And so excited to be joined by two of these today. So first is Erin Keys. Erin is OG peptide expert. She is Chief Scientific Officer, owner, and founder of Varia. We like to say she's the peptide expert extraordinaire. She's worked at the CDC, FDA, CMS. Everyone from celebrities to Fortune 50 CEOs go to have Erin as the go-to expert for their protocols. And we're just so lucky to have this brilliant expertise here with us today. Also joined by Anissa Buckley, our Chief Longevity Officer at the Metapause. Anissa is a super successful multiple-time founder in health and wellness. She's had a menopause company. She also helps women over 55 go on incredible adventure travel. She regularly summits Mount Kilimanjaro to basin at the Grand Canyon. And I like to say is a walking billboard for women's longevity. So without any more hesitation, I will kick it off to them. We want this to be as interactive as possible. Feel free to ask questions. We will kind of try to weave those in, and we're so excited to bring this to you today. Without further ado.
Awesome. Well, I am going to take the lead here just for a minute and then turn it over to Erin. But really wanted to start with almost a refresher for any of you who might have joined us on our last webinar, talking about what happens with decline, either hormone loss or general aging. And there's a number of things, and not all of them are covered here, but very high level. This will hopefully lead us into where Erin will pick up with talking about really cellular health and peptides and all the things we're really here to talk about. Very beginning, what happens with estrogen, progesterone, testosterone loss, and also just general aging. Starts with body composition change, which is loss of muscle mass, especially true for women in the 40-year-old age range. You'll start to notice muscle loss and more visceral fat gain around the middle. There's a lot of repercussions to that as we age, but the good thing is it can be mitigated. So that's what we'll talk about a little bit today. The other thing that comes with that is heightened disease risk down the road. And that partially comes from, again, loss of muscle, gain of fat, but also that can be exacerbated by carbohydrate utilization change, meaning your blood sugar levels might be heightened. You might be less able to utilize carbs the same way that you did when you still had higher levels of estrogen. So something to think about from a nutritional standpoint. Again, there's lots of ways we can help you there. Moving down the list, estrogen contributes to gut biodiversity. So again, changes in your gut area, which can really contribute to distress, inability to digest foods the same way. Bone health changes happen because estrogen facilitates calcium absorption. Exercise capacity can change because VO2 max, which is the way that your body utilizes oxygen, that changes as well. That reduces actually. Sleep patterns change. I think you're probably well aware of that. Cortisol levels can rise, which can contribute to lots of wake-up calls in the middle of the night. And then lastly, cognitive health, which is a big one. We can lose up to 30% of brain function. I didn't even mention skin and hair changes and sexual well-being. So I'm not going to spend the whole hour talking about this. I just wanted to give a very high glimpse of some of the issues we're dealing with at this stage of life, and then turn it over to Erin to talk more about all the great things we can do to mitigate this.
Thanks, Anissa. One of my favorite lessons learned from Anissa in the multiple years that I've known her and worked with her across a number of settings is how we got here isn't how we're going to get there. when it comes to managing our own health. And I think sometimes we need a reminder that what was a healthy behavior for us at 20, at 30, at 40 may not be a healthy behavior for us at 50, 60, or 70. So really, what's the whole point of these dynamic protocols trying to optimize? And really, it's not just about avoiding disease, though that's a big consideration. Really, what we're here to talk about is unlocking a full capacity to live, perform, thrive, and really feel good in your body and your life. So what we like to talk about in an integrative or functional medicine space is really figuring out how you can adapt to life's challenges and become, really show up in your full clarity, power, and resilience. So I love approaching this, next slide, please, from a cellular medicine perspective. Cellular medicine is really an approach that focuses on optimizing the function and communication of cells to prevent, treat, and mitigate or reverse disease. So this is really thinking about how to balance at a cellular level, that root cause approach that bubbles up into tissues, into organs, into organ systems, and the body as a whole. Like Anissa mentioned, there's many elements to maintaining cellular health that can come from nutrition, that can come from stress management, sleep quality, but it can also come from regenerative therapies. So we're going to talk about peptides in particular today, but there's many ways to approach regenerative therapies that work with the body. I like to highlight that this is slightly different than a traditional approach to medicine frequently. So we're working with the body. We're trying to harness the power that it already has. We're trying to give it the building blocks that facilitate the cell's basic functions. Really, what we're trying to do is help the cells clean up the mess, the debris that we accumulate over time. We're trying to help with cell turnover. So when a cell has reached the end of its natural life, cleaning that out and regenerating into or reestablishing a new cell, reducing what's called senescence or senescent load. If you've heard of zombie cells or senescent cells, this is a metabolically active cell that kind of hangs around, and we don't love to see that. So we'll talk a little bit about how to make sure that our cells are healthy and functioning, well maintained, and when they've reached the end of their road, that we turn them over. And this leads to overarching cell efficiency. When you have cell efficiency, that's when we maintain all of those things that Anissa was talking about in the last slide, and protect ourselves from the outside symptoms. So whether it's from estrogen loss or another area, the reduction in cellular efficiency leads to dysfunction throughout the body. So now the fun stuff. My favorite things in the world, peptides. I joke that I was early into the peptide space as a type 1 diabetic because insulin was the first commercial peptide and, changed my life and thousands of others. But though insulin was the first peptide, it is by no means the most common peptide at this point in the Ozempic era. And so Ozempic, GLP-1s, insulin, these are all peptides. There's a ton else here. So the power that we've been able to create with those exemplary peptides, we're just launching into a number of other focus areas. At the core, peptides are just short chains of amino acids. So when you eat a protein, that breaks down into peptides, or it breaks down into our amino acids, which then build into peptides. They are found in all living organisms. So plants and animals, there's over 7,000 varieties of peptides in our bodies. And what's really cool about this is we can use peptides synthesized in a lab or through nutritional sources to help with the precursor development of peptides to improve cell signaling throughout the body, which helps us do all the things we just talked about with cellular health maintenance. The peptides act as hormones, neurotransmitters, growth factors, anti-infectives, all of the great things that we use to maintain our health. What's nice about peptides is because they're short chains of amino acids, oftentimes, 4 amino acids or 10 amino acids, they're very small. And so from a synthetic standpoint, we can absorb them oftentimes through a subcutaneous injection, but in other routes as well, such as a nasal spray, sometimes orally, topically on the skin, which we talk about a lot in aesthetics or wound healing. But there are emerging healthcare delivery tools which will allow us to ingest peptides in those formats more regularly. This is a hugely growing space, and I think a lot is going to come out in the tools and technologies we adopt to really refine how we use peptides and how we get them in the body. But there's still a lot we have to play with right now.
And I think just to jump in, I think that's a really interesting point and a point that can be kind of confusing when you're out there in the wild west of Instagram marketing to you, et cetera. Because depending on the peptides, some you can be delivered, say orally or nasally, and some cannot. And there's new technologies all the time. So that's one of the reasons it's been so fascinating kind of working with you and demystifying which of these things are real or not. And so excited for you to help people understand all that today and ongoing as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we like about peptides is that they're very sensitive molecules. And so oftentimes they will shear, whether that's through aggravation or through the digestive tract. So there's many routes that we can use that can absolve or reduce that shearing. But over time, that's going to be a great focus area. Next.
Anissa.
Yes, sorry.
Perfect. So I'll go through this really quickly, but there's so many things we can do with peptides, and we're going to talk about specific peptides a little bit more soon. But some of the best use cases we've seen are enhanced healing and recovery. So if that's injury, soft tissue, or realistically, what is skincare but soft tissue health? Muscle growth and fat loss. This is where GLP-1s have been an incredible shift in how we've approached management of body composition and overarching health as a result from metabolic function. But muscle growth is a really big part of that. And so if you've heard about muscle loss or muscle wasting in context of a GLP-1, there are many tools that we can use to prevent that, as well as many delivery or protocol designs, dosing requirements that can reduce that risk as well. There's a lot, this is my favorite part of it, really. Cognitive function and mental clarity. So we can help with neuroplasticity. We can improve cognitive performance. We can do a lot to help neurodegenerative disease, which is typically a really difficult group of conditions to support. There's really interesting research around immune system support. So yes, this can reduce the common cold, but it can also help with autoimmune disease or organ transplantation and other interesting pieces. Actually after an injury or surgery, when your body inflames, we can reduce that to productive inflammation that supports healing without risk of infection and things like that. So there's a great use case there too. Hormone balancing and sexual health. This is a big part of what we're here to do. And so as we move through our years, we can help balance those shifts that Anissa mentioned and really, make the rest of our years the best of our years. So helping to maintain that stability really does support all-cause mortality as well. And then energy production. Everyone always wants this. We want to be more energetic, clean energy, better sleep, better cognition, all of that. A lot of that circles around the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. How do we support the performance of the mitochondria that leads to better function throughout our life? And all of these use cases can be addressed by peptides. All right, so this slide is going to be a little bit more interactive with Anissa as well. They're key peptides for longevity. I categorize them to some degree, but there is cross-pollination amongst all of these. None of these are specific use cases that exist in a vacuum. So the most common peptides that you've probably heard of, if you've heard of peptides, or that we use in practice, focus on probably 5 main use cases. Cellular and tissue repair, like we talked about. So injury reduction, that can also be after hitting the gym, how you recover from the gym. As we age and experience traumas from the world, toxins, environmental exposures, etc., we can support that repair to keep our body functioning highly. Metabolic health, of course, this is a huge one that bleeds into cardiovascular health, kidney health, liver health, etc. Gut health is a huge influence here as well. And so really supporting our metabolic health as underpinning the rest of our health. Cognitive health, I already shared how much I like this one. But I think what's really interesting about it is it's not just protection against neurodegenerative disease. It's allowing us to foster learning throughout our years, can improve neuroplasticity and how we are able to learn or be creative, feeling that quickness that sometimes feels lost in youth. So much there. Mitochondrial health, that's our energy sources. But I also think it's really important to talk about how this really underpins immune activation. So your immune health, your immune system is influenced by all of these things and influences back all of these aspects. So when we're talking about, if you're hearing interest in an increase in autoimmune conditions, particularly amongst women, there's a lot we can do to really take our own power and protect ourselves from being a victim to that risk factor. So Anissa and I wanted to talk about some of our favorite peptides. So I might toss it over to Anissa to walk through for women over 40 or in a clinical space. We're actually even starting to kind of segment this at around 35 due to
Yeah,
hormonal shifts and trends. What are your favorite peptides?
they're all, but but honestly, I think I've tried them all at this point. One of my favorites is BPC 157, the very first one on the left side, which is body protective compound, which is exactly as it sounds. Inflammation tends to increase as we age. We know that estrogen is basically an analgesic, so it helps to reduce pain. When it's gone or on the decline, you may start feeling more joint pain, just more achy. BPC 157 can really help to reduce that. So I love it for that reason. But I also love the fact that it's like double promotes, or what I'm trying to say is it's a double workload here. It is also known for gut health. And so that's another one that as we age, we lose the biodiversity of the flora in our gut. And so again, BPC can kind of help to reinstate or promote that, which can help with any gastrointestinal problems. So that would be my number one pick because I am over 40, well over 40. So I need that and I love it. That's number one. So I don't know. I could throw it back to you, or I can keep going. However you'd like to play this game of what are our favorite peptides.
I love BPC 157 too. I think that's a stronghold. I love that it restores just basic function to a lot of our cells. So I completely agree with that one. I think it also empowers us. I hear a lot of feedback on, feeling the pump in the gym.
Mhm.
Anything that empowers people to take action on their lifestyle feels like a really good choice for us too. What I like about BPC 157 also is it will activate the sensitivity of the growth hormone secretagogue receptors. So growth hormone, yes, is what makes us grow taller, but it also helps us in bone mineral density, muscle growth, and a lot of those core foundational elements that drop off as we age. So we know that we tend to lose muscle mass as we age. That is correlated with a drop in growth hormone. What we can do, and growth hormone is a pretty well-studied molecule as well, but there's a negative feedback loop there. And so working with a growth hormone secretagogue or precursor, such as CJC 1295, Ipamorelin, Tesamorelin, Hexarelin, Sermorelin, if you've heard of that one, those are great tools to increase in a physiologic manner. So staying in that natural body production dose, a way to spike growth hormone. I love this tool for many reasons. It does help with muscle maintenance, which is a longevity organ. It also helps increase collagen production, which shows up in the skin. It helps move us into slow wave sleep or deep sleep. That is when we do a lot of that cell maintenance. And so if you're struggling to get sufficient deep sleep, which is very common as we age, we can help with a growth hormone secretagogue aspect. There are things to watch out with that one, of course. So make sure you're making the right decision. I'm type 1 diabetic, like I mentioned, so those aren't really a great fit for me or anyone that struggles with insulin sensitivity. But there are ways that we can really help improve insulin sensitivity through muscle growth as well. So maybe I'd lean on a MOTS-c or something like that to support the same goals. And that's how we try to think about choosing a personalized approach. But in general, anything that promotes muscle mass and metabolic health is also a great choice. And I know you love CJC Ipamorelin too.
I was just going to add to that. I think for me, it's been really a game changer because again, I know when I went through menopause and coming out the other side and being on the older side of things and still loving to climb mountains. Last weekend, I did weight-based mountains in New Hampshire. It actually helps to retain the muscle. And what's great about that is a couple of things. One, many people don't know that a pound of muscle is going to burn 3 times more calories than a pound of fat. And so when you think about that, like everyone, I think women in general, we've been trained to think, well, muscle is a guy thing, right? I don't want a lot of muscle. And maybe that's my generation. Maybe that's changing a little bit right now. But I think in general, when we think growth hormone, we think steroids, we think big muscle guys in the gym. That's not the case here. This is about retaining your metabolism, right? So keeping your body fat percent down a little bit. So I love it because it helps. It's just that little extra push that you need as you're losing muscle. And when I say that, you can fight it, right? I mean, obviously heavy weightlifting, lifestyle factors that come into play here are critically important with any of these peptides. This is not just about taking the injection and everything's great or taking the pill. But anyway, it does help. It does help to boost that muscle mass, which is very key. So I love it for that reason. And everything you said, Erin, I think from a sleep quality perspective, it helps you feel more rested when you get up in the morning. And it certainly helps from a skin perspective of just feeling a little bit plumper, sort of little fewer wrinkle lines here and there. So it's one of my tops as well. So
And it's a great one to pair with a GLP-1 receptor agonist.
yes.
And I do think we should spend a moment talking about that, because in a world of misinformation, GLP-1s have been hit strongly with misinformation.
Yeah.
So a little bit of history on what is a GLP-1. That would be the Ozempics of the world, Mounjaro, Zepbound, Wegovy, et cetera. There are many in the pharmaceutical pipeline right now going through clinical trials. Historically, we've had liraglutide and others. So while this has become a craze recently, GLP-1s have actually been around for a while. What's really nice about them is they've reduced the frequency with which you have to take a GLP-1, and that's made it more adoptable in many populations. But it was actually initially discovered for neurodegenerative disorders. It reduced brain inflammation, which we talk about in the cognitive health section here a little bit. It's neuroprotective, reduces that neuroinflammation, but there's not as much money in that, frankly. And so when it was discovered that it supports insulin sensitivity and can care for people with prediabetes or diabetes, there's a lot more of the population that could really benefit from that. So GLP-1s really started to take hold in the prediabetes world, but they lead to great weight loss as well. Since then, and subsequently, we've learned even more about all of the benefits of these molecules, in terms of anti-inflammatory effect, cardiovascular health, brain health and longevity, kidney disease, liver disease, anxiety and depression, addiction. There are so many use cases for a GLP-1 that really do make it a wonderful molecule. But there are consequences of this as well. I don't think GLP-1s are for everyone, and I don't think they're for everyone all of the time. And so how you use a GLP-1 to leverage the gifts it offers while reducing some of those risks or protecting yourself from the consequences of that decision are really, really critical. People have opinions all over the place on GLP-1s, and it's become a conversation on moral superiority. But at the end of the day, if what we're looking for is longevity, making the best decision for your body. Again, as we age, what you did to get you here is not going to get you there. We have to make those decisions on how to best support our body and our metabolism overall. So that is my soapbox on GLP-1. Anything to add, Anissa?
The only thing I would add is truly the life-changing effect it can have. And so I have been working with women over the past 4 years, specifically on GLP-1s. Many are in the, menopausal phase or even post-menopausal, have had body weight issues for 30 years since, childbirth, and have not been able to move the needle. And I have seen dramatic effects from GLPs with, women getting back to that happy, comfortable, weight again. And so I would say there's just so much misinformation, and unfortunately, pros or cons, there can be stigmas around it. And the reality is, if it makes you feel better, and you're taking steps toward being healthier and losing some of that weight, better for your joints, better for your, overall body, obviously circulatory and respiratory and everything. Just, take the step, because it is life-changing and it really does work. So just a little plug for it.
Tool. You shared an article with me years ago about how it increases adherence.
Exercise.
Yeah. So I think it could be a step in moving, it's really a lift-off point for people.
Completely. Yeah. I mean, as you know, I take women on adventure trips, and a lot of them have been through the GLP-1 weight loss and then feel comfortable and confident to go out and tackle something like the Camino de Santiago in Spain for, 72 miles in 5 days. So yes, I am a big fan. So jumping in
Yeah, and by the way, I just wanted to also jump in just to let everyone know if some of this feels overwhelming or a lot, that's okay. Like it's even me that's been going through this, there's a lot of information here. We wanted to make sure we provide all this, but we're also both here and we'll be following up with additional resources. We have our membership and community that will be opening up. This is meant to be an overview, but we're very much here for you to also help guide through all of this.
Love to talk about it, truly. My husband will be very excited if anyone else would like to talk to me about this. But don't feel like any question is too juvenile or I think it teaches
Erin and I
me.
can geek out together. I call her with all sorts of fun questions every day. And people, I'm sure if they have, many people would be like, why are you even talking about this? Why does it matter? But
I'm thinking about it anyway.
yeah, it's great stuff. And I mean, certainly, if anybody really does walk away from this, like, hey, I feel 100% more, more knowledgeable. I've got everything down. That's amazing because this is, it's new information every single day coming out. They're discovering more and more about different peptides. And so, I even have trouble staying up on it, but, the basics are here. And I think what's nice is just getting started is really one of the most important things. So again, if it appeals to you and if you are in the right situation health wise, there's some incredible positive results that can come out of this. One more, just to add one more, and I know Erin will jump in on this one. Selank and Semax from the cognitive standpoint. Erin mentioned briefly, the increase in anxiety that can happen with the loss of hormones and aging and all the things that happen. Selank is just an unbelievable peptide for helping to reduce that. And so I add that only because I myself did have that particular issue. I mean, there's a lot of things I was blessed to not deal with in menopause, but anxiety was one that hit me. And I didn't even realize it at the time. And so if you're one of those people feeling like you're overwhelmed and you're like, why am I reacting this way? It's most likely a hormone shift, and there's a lot we can do about it. So I throw that
So
one
to
out
be
there.
super clear, so within cognitive health, because I've experimented with some of these too, and they're really, really cool. So I always switch them up actually too. So the one that's best for focus is one, the one that's best for anxiety is the other, which just clear it up so women are
Definitely. Yeah. So Selank is pretty often used or associated with anxiety, and anxiety can impinge upon decision-making tools and therefore lead to improved focus. But really, a lot of what that's doing is supporting a more anxious response or a more like locked-in response. Cmax is often more associated with depressive symptoms and which can cause interruptions to focus too. And they're similar but slightly different. What's really important to note too, and if anyone is in the psychology or psychiatry space or counseling as a whole, very rarely do we have anxiety without depression, depression without anxiety. And it's that, unfortunately kind of parasitic relationship between the two of them that can lead to poor outcomes in a treatment capacity. You can't just treat anxiety and not treat the depression. You can't just treat depression and not treat the anxiety and expect to have peak performance. And frankly, it's risky to not treat both of them. So they have, a similar approach, and you can use one cycle with the other, et cetera. But both of them will have those neuroprotective effects, and both of them will support an improvement, if you will, in establishing new patterns, supporting learning, creativity, memory. I will say Selank has been my most used and most consistently used peptides. People already always, often ask me, like, what peptides do you use? And my two go-tos are, Anissa knows this like the back of her hand because I won't shut up about it, Selank and MOTS-c. And those are my two favorite peptides that have been created. There's so many great benefits to both of those throughout the entire body. But again, particularly for type 1 diabetic, that's what's really helpful for me.
So Selank for the anxiety and MOTS-c is for energy, right?
MOTS-c is for a lot of things. It helps with insulin sensitivity, which again, as a type 1 diabetic, is really helpful for me, but it's really helpful for anyone existing in our food system right now. When we put sugar in our salsa and our, vegetable broth.
Ketchup and yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to have more glucose spikes. And there's a lot of tools we can use on a lifestyle front to reduce that disruption to glucose management. But also, there's only so much you can do when you exist in this world. And so historically, we sort of assumed that obesity caused insulin resistance. What we're seeing now is this, attack of glucose, if you will, and everything
Mm,
is
yeah.
creating those insulin spikes and those glucose spikes that can lead to insulin resistance. And that leads to weight gain. That leads to cardiovascular outcomes. There's a lot of things that are associated with insulin sensitivity. MOTS-c does that. With that, it helps move you into kind of that fat burning mind or cellular function. So fatty acid oxidation. It doesn't
So
mean
it's burning more fat without you having to work harder.
sort of. I mean, there's a lot of debate on this of like if you're just burning up the fat on your body. No, but it's a more efficient pathway in the cell. And ultimately, there is a story of calories in, calories out here, but it is how you are using those calories and how that is helping to maintain the body's health. So MOTS-c really helps to kind of true that up and support a better metabolic flexibility, moving you into that fatty acid oxidation.
Cool. Yeah, I remember when I first started diving into this and I kept hearing about mitochondrial health and I was like, why do I care? I mean, I remember this from, biology in high school, but it's the part of our cells that's the energy core, all of it. And so our body's made up of all of cells, and this is
Yeah.
helping it do what it used to do really well when we were younger and doesn't do as well as we get older because our bodies are not necessarily designed to live this long, but now they can. We're
Exactly
helping
right.
it do what it was doing on its own before, right?
And mitochondrial health is really pivotal to that cellular efficiency and homeostasis. I could do an entire talk on just mitochondria. And for context, my brother literally has a mitochondria tattooed on his arm. So like we're nerds about it. But
That's funny.
the mitochondria
What?
itself
Huh.
is how we produce energy. And so if we have that metabolic flexibility where we switch into that fatty acid oxidation versus glucose oxidation, that's when we have a more efficient output of our energy units in the body. So that leads to lower reactive oxygen species in the body. That creates a whole bunch of disruption, causes things like cancer risk, and overall dysfunction. So that's why it's so important that we move into that fatty acid oxidation pathway versus simple glucose metabolism. Both are very useful and very needed throughout your day, but there is a more efficient pathway if we can maintain that mitochondrial health, the structure, the process, the utilization of its resources.
Well, so we have a few questions. I thought I'd direct some of these over to you now. So, one is um there's a question, there's a few questions here about how and where to access, how to know which ones to trust, including how do you know what's the best pharmacy you should get this from? What about shots versus supplements versus pill forms? Someone asked about a specific company like Make Wellness. What do we think of theirs? And I think this is a good opportunity to kind of, it is a world that is rife with there's a lot of snake oil and there's a lot of very real, right? And I think that's one reason why we're bringing everyone here together so we can offer trusted sources, but maybe speak to those a little bit.
Yeah, I can kick that off and Anissa jump in as desired. There's a number of different sources for these, and a lot of it depends on how the molecule itself is categorized. Can we actually jump one slide ahead? And I'm going to use that slide as part of this conversation. Sorry, maybe
We don't want to go
Sorry,
in.
we're probably a few.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm glad we covered the things that
Yeah,
we
we
are going to
got
cover.
through most of it. We missed a few, but that's all right. Here we go.
So peptides are researched primarily in foreign nations, but there's a good amount of research here as well. And depending on how it is categorized with FDA, often yields how you are able to access it. So in general, there's, kind of 4 different ways that we access peptides. One is from a brand name drug like Wegovy or Ozempic that you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Those are, very standard and FDA audited. A secondary option is in a 503A or 503B, depending on where you go, compound pharmacy. Those are also FDA audited, so that they are part of our regulatory system. They are allowed to produce certain molecules on these lists that are part of a regulatory and compliance pathway. There are many that they are restricted from producing because either there isn't enough information about them or the information that was available was generally improperly researched, but showed significant risk, generally like itchiness at injection site, which I find hilarious because insulin makes me, itch more than anything. But they are then restricted from producing those molecules in the US. We are able to access it through pharmacies that can produce it globally, and there's a personal import allowance that offers that. So we can still access those molecules where they are utilized in their own nations. And various pharmaceutical companies have involvement in that in other nations as well. There's also a research use only pathway, and this is kind of a gray zone. No one really knows the stability of this market and the utility of it. So if the issue for FDA approval is that we don't have enough data on it and we can't use research use only, we're sort of short circuiting there, right? We can't evolve the data set for these molecules to allow them for proper use.
Mm.
So you might ask, why doesn't a pharmaceutical company put it through a clinical trial like they did for Ozempic? And what's really challenging about peptides is they are biosimilar and it's really difficult to patent. We're seeing a lot of tension around that with GLP-1s right now and the ability to compound them. So it's a very litigious environment. A lot of pharmaceutical companies are being very aggressive on the reduction of compounding. And so if it takes $1 billion to put something through a clinical trial and you can't patent it, it's not a very wise financial or business decision for that pharmaceutical company and, shareholder value. So we're in this kind of really tough spot right now. I know a number of agencies were looking at how to mimic a clinical trial situation for biosimilar, bioidentical molecules, but we're not quite there yet. So there's the research use only pathway. And then there's certain peptides that are categorized as supplements, which are not FDA regulated, and you can buy in an oral or topical stance.
And there's certain ones that works really well for. For instance, BPC 157. There are really great ones. We have several that we really love, both on the Metapause site and our shop. And through Beyond Concierge. There's others that don't work as well. So we try to make all that really clear within all of our materials, and we're happy to answer any questions. And the last thing to just really kind of summarize that last piece, because something's FDA approved, it doesn't mean it's necessarily good. Because it's not, does not mean it's necessarily bad. Our health system is very much run by pharma. And to Erin's point, many things that aren't weren't technically FDA approved yet, it means that a pharma company didn't spend a bunch of money to put it through clinical trials simply because they couldn't patent it. And it doesn't mean there actually isn't a ton of data for spanning over 20 years for many of these things, right? Have been used
More so, yeah.
And not like tiny third world countries and very developed countries around the world, just not the US that is really run by pharma. So longer discussion there, but that's kind of where it is. And that's really part of our mission here is how do we enable access to these incredible, magical, life-changing interventions that are really, really good, mostly really safe, often more safe than a lot of pharmaceutical interventions that are handed out like candy, where women and men can really kind of take control of how they age at every point of life, but especially at this particular peri to post-menopausal stage. So there's my soapbox, but so we have about 15 minutes left. What do you guys think? Do you want to, are there any big ones from the slides we just skipped that you want to make sure that we cover? And then we can spend the rest maybe on Q&A, because we have some really good ones here. I also do want to mention, we have most of these big ones available now through the Metapause, through our partners. We've really, scoured the world for the absolute best, literally scoured the world. Erin and Anissa for 10 years, 15, 20 years have been deep in this world along with our partners. So we're really excited to offer these. I popped the link into the chat as well. And we'll be following up with more information on membership. But yeah, back over to you guys. I just wanted to do a little time check.
I'm happy to open it up to questions if we want, or to foster conversation on how someone would choose to move forward with a molecule, whatever the audience would like to hear.
I'll grab a few questions. So what are the best peptides to stack with GLP-1s?
Anissa, do you want to take down the
side?
Yeah.
I feel like that.
Do you want to go anywhere else? You just want me to open it up?
Pop it over to the list of peptides one.
I'm sorry. Sorry, where do you want me to go? Okay. Sorry. I'm the worst driver of this presentation, as we all know.
So, yeah, why don't we just two more.
Which ones we should stack with GLP-1s? That's really a personalized question on why you are using a GLP-1 and where you're at in your life. In general, if we highlight what are the risk factors associated with overusing or using a GLP-1, that would be, muscle loss. And I think this is something that we've talked about ad nauseum internal to the integrative space, but is less socialized externally. There are many ways that you can mitigate muscle loss, or increasing often your protein intake, timing of your dietary choices, strength and resistance training, quality sleep so that you can actually build the muscle repair and recovery. So there's many elements to protect against muscle loss. But if you're going to have an arsenal, I love CJC Ipamorelin, Tesamorelin, MOTS-c, of course, and even thymosin beta 4, BPC 157, that support muscle anabolism, so building of muscle. We're always building and destroying our muscle. It's literally just this dynamic process. And if we can skew that to building more muscle during our GLP-1 journey and post, it helps us to maintain the results. It helps us to protect our health long term. And frankly, it can accelerate the fat loss piece of a GLP-1 process in general. For other people, if anxious eating is more the issue, Selank's an ideal combination for that one. If you are someone that, comes home and you're like, oh my God, I need the snacks because I'm stressed, and that's ultimately what soothes me, having that stable mindset to approach it allows you to have more control over the decisions you're making. So that's what I like about a GLP-1. It increases your ability to put structure and systems in place for your life because we fall to the level of our systems, and GLP-1s really support creating that system that you can maintain in your life. So Selank might be that. And that's in context of weight loss generally, but can also be, as a cause for prediabetes or diabetes if sugar and sweets are very soothing to you.
Yeah.
The other one I will say is actually SS31, MOTS-c. Those are fantastic as well for energy, because if we're thinking about this holistically for a GLP-1, movement is so critical to metabolic health, whether that the goal is fat loss, insulin sensitivity, and lowering an A1C, or, even as simple as, or as complex really, as Anissa was saying, for joint health. We have a lot of people that use GLP-1s for rheumatoid arthritis because that anti-inflammatory effect is really one of the few things that gives relief. And in that context, maybe we're supporting that bony tissue, but maybe it's also giving someone their energy and their vibrancy for life back and establishing a process towards moving. Those tend to be my favorite combinations. But if you're like, I'm losing weight to look good and I want my skin to not have any sagginess and I want to protect the collagen and elastin production, maybe I'd throw in a GHK copper.
Yep, I would add that too. Kind of going back on the GLP-1s, just as a side note, one thing that is key, and Erin mentioned it, is making sure you're paying attention to your dietary changes. And when I say that, I go back to the fact that we cannot utilize carbs the same way. Excuse me. And so we actually do have a sample meal plan that we share when we have people through the Metapause using GLP-1s, where we front load the day with carbs and we evenly dose the protein throughout the day. And the macro profile is about a 30% protein split, just to make sure, because what's really hard, I think, for a lot of people on GLP-1s is actually eating, is actually getting enough food in. And so, we emphasize that. We like to stay, in touch with people, obviously, and tracking and coaching to make sure you are getting those calories in, because without getting enough in over time, that is not going to help your long-term plan of maintaining your weight. So that's just another piece.
I'd say nutrient dense food.
Mm-hmm.
So in our food system, I feel like everyone's picking up on my thoughts on our food system.
Yeah.
We have a calorie dense, nutrient poor distribution, meaning we've got a lot of shit in there and we don't have sufficient nutrients. Nutrients are the building blocks of life. So if we can, again, add that level of control over the decisions we're making to support a nutrient dense model that is fit for where you're at in life and the conditions you're up against, that really is super helpful. What I'll say, and Anissa touched on this is why I love compounded GLP-1s. You can be very precise on dosing. So we don't want to oversuppress an appetite ever. That is the opposite of helpful. And so really working at that minimum effective dose to get the results that you want. There is some complexity in managing insulin sensitivity and suppression of appetite that can be a challenge for people. But generally, if you can reduce your appetite by, 30, as low as possible to get you on the pathway to where you're going, that's the dose you should really stick with. If you don't have a talented healthcare provider or trying to navigate this on yourself, it can be common to jump up to a higher dose. The maximum dose for semaglutide is 2.4 milligrams, tirzepatide 15 milligrams. Most people really only need half a milligram to 1.5 milligrams in semaglutide.
Yeah.
Keeping that dose really low or comparably low often leads to great anti-inflammatory and protective benefits while not removing the ability to care for your body. And ultimately, we're doing this to look and feel good. So if you are destroying yourself in the process of using a GLP-1, it's in vain.
Yep. Okay. Do you have another question, Lauren, or?
Yes. We have is there a reasonable time frame to start seeing results from using peptides, especially if you're stacking them together to know individual versus collective impact? Are there ways to know if they're working or not working from the latest application? For example, a cream works well with your body, but a pill less effective. So there's a lot of questions in here. I think one rule of thumb is you generally want to start with one and add on so you can kind of manage like anything else, but I'll let you guys answer.
Yeah, I have a lot of opinions on this, as no one's surprised about, I'm sure. And I do this pretty alternatively to a lot of providers. So this is, I'll say, my opinion. And there are other clinically validated ways that we can talk about as well. But in terms of knowing if something is working, peptides take a while to show up. So you're not going to see an increase in collagen production for a while if you're using a CJC Ipamorelin or an epitalon or something like that. It takes some time to show up in the skin. That said, I will have a lot of conversations with our patient population, which is in the thousands at this point, and see that there are sometimes consistent clues or process measures, if you will, that tell me we're in the right direction. So I ask some wild questions frequently that people are like, why in the heck are you asking that? But it will be things like, do you feel a temperature differential? Does your body exposed to heat or cold feel differently than it did? And that tells me a lot about circulation. That tells me a lot about metabolic activity before that shows up on the scale or in the mirror or in certain biomarkers. So a lot of this is getting really in touch with your body and understanding, are my behaviors different? Are my experiences different? Am I feeling different? Do I have tension in places or relaxation in others? So it's really trying to read the clues of your body. When you can pull that out and then expose that to other people's opinions and experiences, that's where a community, I think, is particularly helpful. We can often decode what's happening and attribute it to certain molecules. That's a really intense process, and it's super helpful to have a partner in discussing that. But the center, the absolute epicenter of anything in regenerative care is being really in touch with the sensations and experience of your own body. And it is different than your experience is different than anyone else's.
I think that's super key. I know of the women I've worked with, I have seen women, same rough size, body composition, age, everything the same. Somebody will lose 2 pounds, 3 pounds their first week on a GLP-1, and somebody else will go 4 weeks before they see anything. So there's certainly individual responsiveness. And then I know Erin is right on board. Like there's also certain peptides like SS31, which I've been on for about 3 years now, a huge fan of it, but yet it's not something that is like, well, not giving me
In cycles. We cycle that one.
It is a cycle thing. Yes, for sure. But not exactly giant changes in how I feel. This is what, my understanding, because I've read on the subject, it's a long-term thing, right? So this is about mitochondrial repair. I have a little more energy, but it's not like, wow, what a big change. So it really depends on, the peptide, lots of individual responsiveness. So I would throw that out there too.
There's a bunch of ways to test that a little bit as well. So we did talk about biomarkers a little bit. Your insulin levels or hemoglobin A1C should change with a GLP-1. There's a bunch of functional
Yes.
tests you can do in terms of your gut microbiome composition. VO2 max is a great measure.
Great
Heart rate
points.
variability are other measures. Quantity of deep sleep. There's many ways to measure this,
For
and
sure.
it takes research and a really diligent approach at navigating your own health.
Yes. So,
Love
Anissa,
that.
go to the offer page. So, last question is, do we offer these peptides even if they're not approved by the FDA? How do I sign up for your service, and how much does it cost? The next slide.
I know.
So yes, we do, and
Never let me grab
more
again.
coming soon. So if you want today, so there's kind of two categories here. There's peptides that require a telehealth or other visit. There's asynchronous ones where you can actually just sign up, fill out a form. Our providers will review, and you can just go ahead and order them. And then we have our whole membership community that's going live. So you go on today. Many of them are live today. The rest coming soon. It's the metapause.com/peptides. I popped it in the chat. I'll follow up with all of this as well. And then, yeah, we're launching our communities. So we'll have access to Erin, to Anissa, as well as on a host of incredible, amazing experts that we can continue deep diving on these and make all of this as accessible as possible. So yeah. And with that, we are at time. Please join our WhatsApp community. I popped that in the chat as well. Sign up. We are just so excited. We're at the beginning of this journey, and there's just so much exciting things coming. And yeah, let us know what you think. We love feedback. And yeah, but without that. So any last words, ladies?
Let's go. Let's do it. There's
right.
so much positive coming out of it. I'm excited. So
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think we're really emerging into a new way to approach health and wellness. And as someone who's studied public health for a long time and sees the value of population level approaches, we are now enabled with the tools to have a really personal N=1 journey. So we've wanted to move in this direction for years and haven't had the tools to do it, and we finally do. So I think we're in an emergence setting.
Yes.
Very great point.
The last thing, plug. So as I mentioned at the beginning, those who know, we're also building and getting ready to launch the beta for ELSA. This is our tech platform. It's the Endocrine Longevity System Advisor, really creating ultra personalized health concierge for women everywhere. So we'll be onboarding and announcing that as well. We'd love for you to sign up and feedback as we support this journey. So many things to come. Thank you all so much for coming, and more to come very soon. Bye all.
Thanks.
Bye.